Welcome to the Fantasy Football Fanalist Podcast, presented by Fantasy Data. Here's your hosts, Billy Muzio and Bradley Stalder.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Football Fanalist Podcast presented by Fantasy Data. Billy and Bradley here tonight, and we're going over our 2021 sleeper picks. That's right. We're at the end of draft season, and we are going to be giving you all the magic deep down inside the bags that Billy has, that Bradley has, keys to success to win your leagues. It's the late round sleeper picks that you're going to see in rounds 10, 11, 12, further on, even all the way down to round 17 and 18. These are the picks that win leagues. It's not round 1, 2, and 3. That's chalk. Everyone drafts the same crap week in and week out. We're talking about the sleeper picks that make or break a team and catapults you to the top of the standings. Bradley, you created some slides again for us. You're like the slide master.
These are the picks, Billy, just to re-emphasize again, these are the picks that win leagues, that get you that wide receiver 2 when yours goes down. This gets you that to Robert Tonyan. That gives you
the Justin Jeffersons,
the running back 2 that you need to hold water and get you to the playoffs and set yourselves up for, let your running back 1 run wild, but maybe yours is out and you need someone to step up and you want to just stash. And we've got players that are in that spot for you tonight.
I am so fired up for this show. I love sleeper picks. Like, this is what makes or breaks teams. Like, I love these kind of picks. Like, I feel like if you're able to hit on a handful of these every year, you win your league, hands down.
Absolutely. Let's jump into it, Billy. We've got our first, your first. We'll start with
my
yours.
first.
Your first sleeper. And Billy, tell us about Gabriel Davis, your number 1 sleeper.
I've been touting him since February, and we were wrapping up projections, and I was like, holy shit, I love Gabe Davis. And I was, looking through statistics and looking through numbers here at the fantasydata.com, taking a look at all of our analytics there, and a few of these stats jumped out to me. He was, in a very limited capacity last year. He was wide receiver 11 in fantasy points per target, wide receiver 4 in yards per reception. And here's the biggie, his red zone usage. He was wide receiver number 9 in red zone targets, even though he had a limited capacity. And he was only 1 touchdown behind Stephon Diggs last year. And so Gabe Davis, I expect big things from him this year. I mean, look at his target separation last year, wide receiver number 9 in target separation, and then wide receiver number 15 in yards per target. This kid, I think, is a star in the making. I don't give a rat's what about Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley. They're chumps. I mean, they're nothing compared to Gabe Davis, and he has Josh Allen as a quarterback. Gabe Davis is the target. He started slipping now to round 17 in FFPC drafts. That's free. That's free money. Take it. I mean, worst case scenario, he sucks. Okay, I'm sorry. Then he's your waiver wire drop. You pick up somebody else. But I'll put money on that Gabe Davis does not fail this year.
Well, you have been putting your money where your mouth is. You've been drafting a lot of Gabriel Davis. I am not as big into Gabriel Davis, but with him being that late, like, I see him as, if you're in the 17th round, sure, you can do worse than Gabriel Davis, especially since, Emmanuel Sanders, he was good last year in the limited time that he had, but he's 33 years old, 34 years old. Cole Beasley is on the wrong side of 30. He's also not vaccinated. And we saw today.
That just means defenders are going to be, doing their
socially distanced.
So socially distancing against Gabe Davis. That just means more. Look at that. Target separation is going to be 6 yards this year.
Well, with Cole Beasley's, what I'm saying is that Jacksonville, Urban Meyer, the head coach for Jacksonville, actually came out and said that he cut some players it was a factor of their vaccination. And so, I mean, Cole Beasley, if he's out, he could be out for a while, and Gabriel Davis might be a play here, especially given his frame. He's 6'4". He's definitely an end zone target.
Yeah. And he's got Josh Allen as his QB. Fire him up.
Okay. Next, my number 1 sleeper, Jakobi Meyers. And he has been rising. He's one of the fastest risers in best ball recently. But we got news today out of New England that it's not Cam Newton who's the starting quarterback. It's Mac Jones. And while Mac Jones is not a mobile quarterback, he's not going to be leading all quarterbacks in rushing touchdowns like Cam Newton was. He's going to be getting the ball down the field. And it seemed during the preseason that there were just scripted plays and scripted passes specifically in the offense for Mac Jones. And Jakobi Meyers, I think, is the alpha among this wide receiver core. I don't think it's Nelson Agholor. I don't think it's Kendrick Bourne. I think the tight ends are second and third in this offense. Jakobi Meyers last season had over a 23% target share, which was the 24th best among all wide receivers. But in the second half of the season, he was like a top 12 wide receiver in target share. It was ungodly. He was flirting with almost 30% of targets every single week. His air yard share was wide receiver 13 throughout the course of the whole season. As I said, in the second half of the season, Meyers was just getting the ball down the field. His target rate was 10th among all wide receivers. His yards per route run, wide receiver 8. His true catch rate was wide receiver 22. Fantasy points per route run, wide receiver 21. He's a back end wide receiver 2 being drafted in the 10th round of 12-team leagues. And I think that this is a player who could finish as a back end wide receiver 2, maybe top end wide receiver 3. The only thing that he didn't do last year was catch touchdowns, but he threw for 2 touchdowns. So that's worth something, right?
6-point passing touchdown leagues.
Yes. So Jakobi Meyers actually got some, plus the passing yardage. So there you go. Jakobi Meyers is my number 1 sleeper. I think that he can definitely make a move and has commanded the target share. And frankly, target share is one of the most sticky stats that turns year over year. Usually there's not a ton of change in target share year over year. And I still think even with the additions of Agholor and Kendrick Bourne, I think Jakobi Meyers is still the number 1 in this offense.
I like it. He's been a late target of mine in best ball, especially underdog. You just come around the corner sometimes. It's just ugly if you start with, running backs and tight ends and that 3 wide receiver start. So he's been one of my targets as well as Nelson Agholor. And now that Mac Jones has won this job, it's the arrow is pointing up for all this receiving options inside this New England offense.
And wheels up for Damien Harris as well. He's going to get a lot of goal line work, and Ramondre Stevenson also will be sprinkled in there. I think that's really great for the running back core that from a fantasy perspective that Cam Newton is not the quarterback.
Yep. All right, let's look at my number 2.
Ooh, Billy, you couldn't even help yourself. Before we hopped on the podcast, you were like, Bradley, I got to tell you more about Terrace Marshall. So tell us more about Terrace Marshall.
He's sexy as hell, man. I love this pick. I mean, and he has looked the part here inside this Carolina offense. I mean, this preseason here, he led all wide receivers with 37.1 fantasy points per 100 snaps, according to our fantasydata.com preseason snap count data. And he saw an 18.5 target share. I understand it's preseason, but still, that's a good amount of target share. And that was over 50% of the snaps for the time he was on the field. And Marshall finished the preseason with 65 total snaps. He was number 1 in all wide receivers across the entire NFL preseason with 24.1 fantasy points. He's a stud. I've been telling you he's a stud. He outplayed, Jamar Chase in their time in LSU at times. He outplayed Justin Jefferson at times. I mean, this kid has stud written all over him. And I mean, he just got reunited too with Joe Brady from their time at LSU. He's the OC here now. And I'm just telling everybody, don't sleep on Terrace Marshall.
I mean, Sam Darnold, who's now the Carolina Panthers quarterback, targeted Jamison Crowder almost 25% of the time in the slot. So if that's what he's going to do, Terrace Marshall is going to get target share. We saw 3 wide receivers coexist in this Carolina offense last year with Teddy Bridgewater. And I don't know whether Sam Darnold is actually an improvement on an NFL or fantasy level, but I think it's going to be a wash it's going to be close enough where Marshall and DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson can all exist still.
I missed like the number 2 bullet point on here. He had a 20.1 yard per reception in preseason. That is just monstrous. That's
league leading.
Yeah, that's beast written all over him. Terrace Marshall is a man, and he's just going to manhandle these DBs.
He's a man.
He's a man.
All right, Terrace Marshall is
Billy's it's a man's world.
Oh, man, here we go. My number 2 sleeper, Zach Ertz.
Who?
And you're thinking to yourself,
he plays football?
He still plays football. Yes, he does. Look, he had been a top 6 tight end for 4 straight seasons before 2020 hit. He was injured. He left one game early. He was eased into another game. So he really only played 9 full games. He was on pace for over 104 targets, which still would have put him, in that top 12, top 8 tight end target share. And that's what you want from your tight ends, because touchdowns come and go for tight ends, right? That's historically just been the case. You want your touchdowns from the tight ends, sure, but the most secure thing is a target share for tight ends. Dallas Goedert was there last year, and Zach Ertz was still getting the ball. Jalen Reagor, I'm not convinced he can take the step forward. Maybe he can. Devonta Smith is there as well, but we saw Travis Fulgham go off. Now he's since been waived. RIP Travis Fulgham. But with Zach Ertz being drafted at like tight end 26 in a lot of drafts, tight end 24, 26, I think is an absolute value. And if you want like this super late secure target share from the tight end, Zach Ertz is not dead. Like, he just didn't get touchdowns last year in an offense that was led by Carson Wentz. And we saw how Jalen Hurts really did target the tight end a lot in his last few games. And so I'm not out on Zach Ertz. I still think he's very usable. And like with that type of target share, 17, 18%, that's going to get you what you want, especially if you completely punt the tight end position. So Zach Ertz is being left for dead. I don't think he's dead yet.
No, and you said it. We've been seeing him get the targets here from Jalen Hurts, and he's a perfect tight end too with upside, especially in tournament play. Like, he has been a go-to for me in late rounds when I draft somebody like Kittle or Waller as my 1. I come back late and I take.
And then you just forget about tight end until you draft Zach Ertz,
and then you just draft him at the late in rounds. He's got the upside to shoot for the stars in a tournament play, but you don't have to spend a lot of capital on him when you have another premium tight end. So. He's been one of my late round targets. I like it. And I fully thought he was going to be traded by now. So we're here now. Looks like he's here to stay. And I think that, this offense is going to coexist with 12 personnel with him and Goddard both in the field. So I think these tight ends are going to dominate this receiving game. And I think these wide receivers are going to sprinkle in here and there, but I think we're going to have a lot more consistency from the tight end position inside this offense than we will from the wide receiver position, especially earlier in the year.
And that's why he's a sleeper. Like, he's been getting a lot of buzz in the preseason. We still think he has a role. He was not traded. He's still on this team, and they're going to use him in the personnel packages to help support a very young quarterback in Jalen Hurts. All right, Billy, tell us about your number 3 sleeper pick.
Can you do me a favor? Can you refresh it? It's driving me crazy. I moved all the fantasy data emblems.
Refresh the
never mind. Did that work? Boom.
We'll find out. We'll find out.
It worked.
Let me get back to your. There we go.
All right.
Billy, your number 3 sleeper is
Bryan Edwards. And I mean, this man, another man, right? He's a beast. He's a true X receiver. He stands at 6'3", 212 pounds. And I've been drafting Edwards all year late in FFPC drafts. I mean, rounds 16, 18, like when he was going there. And as of late, he's crept up to rounds 10 through 12. His upside is just way too large to ignore. And I have Edwards, slotted to start in 3 wide receiver sets. We saw today that John Brown was released. Thank you. It's I expected him to be in a limited role. I thought there was a possibility he could be released. So it's nice to see that actually happen, because that just shows the trust that they have in Bryan Edwards as well as Ruggs. So they're going to let these younger receivers develop, which is nice. But the beauty about it is he's also being very utilized in red zone packages throughout camp, which, I mean, due to his frame, which is outstanding. I have him projected for, and this is updated today, by the way, with the John Brown news, 94 targets, 63 receptions, 1,097 receiving yards, 6 scores. And to top that off, Bradley let me know off air, Derek Carr had the second best pass grade for 20 yards or more down the field in 2020, only behind one quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. And so Bryan Edwards is a down the field threat. He's a big man. He's a monster. He's going to be catching passes from Derek Carr, who was second best in 2020. Needles pointing up for Bryan Edwards here in 2021.
So I'm not as optimistic about Bryan Edwards, but I still think he's going to be, I have him with 54 receptions, 937 yards, and 5 touchdowns.
I mean, it's close.
But he's no matter what, he's going to be the second option on this team. I wonder how much Hunter Renfrow is going to be used now that John Brown is not there. I wonder how much Henry Ruggs, it's either going to be Bryan Edwards or Henry Ruggs who levels up this year. And if you want to take your stab at Henry Ruggs because of his speed, go for it. If you think Bryan Edwards is the alpha and he's built like that to be a red zone threat, go for it. If you buy the T.O. Devontae Adams hype that over the last year Bryan Edwards has been receiving,
that's like best case scenario. I mean, I'm just looking for another option in this receiving game to emerge outside Darren Waller, and I think that he has the skill set, the size, and the speed to do it. And and worst case scenario, he's used in the red zone, and he's a touchdown machine. But I think that his skill set allows him to be successful outside of the red zone, and I think that we're going to see that here in 2021. I don't think they let John Brown go unless one of these receivers is really primed for a breakout, and I think that. I mean, 50-50 shot here, but I think it's Bryan Edwards.
Okay.
So another thing too, I reached out to Dwayne at PFF. I was messaging him on Twitter today, and I said, "Hey, I just want to think of, am I crazy here? Because I have him projected very high. What do you have him projected for?" And I told him I have him projected for 94 receptions, and then the yardage I told you, the 1,097 yards. And he said I have him for 99 receptions or 99 targets. So confirmation, Dwayne's also very high on Bryan Edwards this year.
I have Edwards at 81 targets, so
not far off.
Not too. I think he's the third. If I'm hedging, I slightly favor Ruggs. In fact, I have them within 3 fantasy points of each other, so it's close. I'm hedging 50-50. Okay, Bryan Edwards, Billy's number 3 sleeper pick. My number 3 sleeper pick, a rookie this year, Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore is a second-round pick out of by the Arizona Cardinals. His comp on playerprofiler.com is T.Y. Hilton because of his speed, his size, his dynamic play. And he's replacing Larry Fitzgerald. Now, Fitzgerald came out a couple weeks ago and said he just doesn't have the urge to play, and maybe he'll come back. But, I think Rondale Moore is going to be way more effective at this point of his career than Larry Fitzgerald was last year. Remember, Larry Fitz had 5.5 targets per game. Imagine if those 5.5 targets per game went to a dynamic player. Rondale Moore could make the most of this, especially given the injury histories of Christian Kirk and AJ Green. If we are fading AJ Green, or if we're worried about Christian Kirk not being the breakout candidate that we had hoped he was over the last couple of years, Rondale Moore provides a safe slot option for a dynamic offense. Kyler Murray, we know, is trusted in getting his receivers the ball. We saw that because DeAndre Hopkins had a 70% catch percentage last year. And Rondale Moore was drafted to be this replacement, to be more dynamic. So, yes, he's only played 7 college games in the last 2 seasons, but we saw what he did at age 18 and break out at Purdue. He was going absolutely ham. And so I'm really excited about Rondale Moore. I think as I said, he's a sleeper. Like, this is the sleepers episode. So he may not awaken until maybe the second half of the season, when it becomes clear that AJ Green is old and decrepit and dusty. And
I don't
Christian
think
Kirk,
that's the scenario. Did you see the usage that they involved him in the preseason? I mean, he was designed plays early and often on their drives with Kyler Murray on the field. I think that
Rondale Moore, they manufactured touches for. He had rushes, he had slot receptions, he had sweeps. But with AJ Green, I'm not trusting that his body's going to hold up. He's a big-bodied receiver, and he struggled with injury.
And Christian Kirk sucked. He hasn't been anything that we thought he was going to be.
Exactly.
Rondale Moore has been dynamic when he's on the field.
Exactly.
I love the pick. I think the fit in the scheme is designed for him. I think it's a perfect fit.
So dangerous
for what his skill set is. And I think that, I think I think he almost has to succeed in this offense.
Yeah, I don't see any other way except the injuries. We did see him miss some games over the last few years due to injury, and his size. He's only 5'7". He's like the Ant-Man of the NFL. But look, he's so dynamic. You want to take your stabs at players who have high upside, and Rondale Moore has that. Okay. You ready for number 4, Billy?
Oh, I'm ready.
Number 4, you've been touting this running back all offseason. You've been drafting him way late. You've been, how high of rostership, ownership do you have with Darrynton Evans, your number 4 sleeper? Uh-oh, I think you're muted. Billy, you're muted. No! I can't hear you. Oh, no. I've taken the words right out of Billy. He can't even describe. It's indescribable how amazing Darrynton Evans is. Well, I'll talk about Darrynton Evans while Billy's figuring out his mic. Darrynton Evans last year came out with a lot of hype. He was projected to be the backup running back to Derrick Henry last season, but he suffered some injuries, didn't play much last year, almost at all. And then we saw Jeremy McNichols get some play. We saw Donta Foreman get some play as the backup in Tennessee. But this year, Darrynton Evans, we saw Brian Hill go on the IR. So it's not the Brian Hill show as the backup for Derrick Henry. Instead, it's going to be Darrynton Evans. And this is a player, remember, whose profile, 96 percentile 40-yard dash, 86 percentile speed score. He had a middling target share, career target share. So, hey, Billy, how are you doing? Nope, I can't hear you. Okay, so he is Darrynton Evans, a middle capable pass catcher. His comp on Player Profiler is Darrell Henderson. So this is definitely a player that I've at least been more intrigued by because of Billy's drafting of Darrynton Evans. As I mentioned, 3rd round pick, so decent draft capital. And it's very possible that if Derrick Henry, this is the last year that Derrick Henry won't be cut from the Tennessee Titans. So at the end of the offseason, it's within the range of outcomes that Darrynton Evans is could take over this backfield. So, yeah. So that's Billy's 4th sleeper, Darrynton Evans. I know he's drafted him like super late. I think usually like 16th, 17th rounds, or just an absolute late flyer. But, with the type of upside that you might need out of an Evans if Derrick Henry goes down, like the whole offense in Tennessee is centered around Derrick Henry. So if Henry goes down, you want a piece of that rushing attack, and Darrynton Evans seems to be the clear handcuff here for Derrick Henry. My 4th sleeper is famous Jameis Winston. He is my sleeper pick. The last time, let's remember Jameis Winston. He was the quarterback 4 back in 2019 when he was the starting quarterback for Tampa Bay. Yes, that Jameis Winston. He's my projected quarterback 12, and I would have him higher if he actually had some weapons, but he just doesn't have the weapons. Michael Thomas, there's a little more optimism now that He will only need to miss 6 games. Marquez Callaway showed out during the preseason. Alvin Kamara was being useful. Tony Jones seems to have stepped up in that running back 2 spot. Jawan Johnson seems to have stepped up in that tight end, receiving tight end role. Traquan Smith is still there. Deontay Harris is still a very valuable wide receiver. And Billy is back.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Your soundboard is
back to Darrynton Evans. Let's go. Go back. Go back.
All right. Oh, man, I can't. I let me finish Jameis Winston. We'll go back to Darrynton Evans. Okay, so one last thing about Jameis is he is an underrated rusher. He's not a 0 in the rushing category. He'll usually get you 2-3 points a week in the rushing. So it's not nothing like a Mac Jones or a Tom Brady, but Jameis, he's going to make mistakes, but he may have to pass to make up for those mistakes. So with him being willing to throw a lot, let's get behind the Jameis Winston. It may have some stank to it, but I'm still in on drafting Jameis Winston. Okay, Billy.
He's not going to give you any of those ceilings, but you know what he is going to give you? The perfect window to sell. Get rid of him. Just sell him now. Like his wide receiver core right now. I mean, Callaway impressed in the preseason, but I mean, we have no Mike Thomas until at least week 7. They have a week 6 bye. He's on the pup, out 5 weeks, week 6 bye, week 7 at the very earliest. That's it. Very, 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 very earliest we see Mike Thomas is week 7 this year.
Yep.
Trotman is injured, and he was used primarily as a blocking tight end earlier in the preseason. We have Marcus
because he was a good blocking tight end.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm just saying that the lack of weapons, all they really have is Alvin Kamara.
Hey,
and
that's not a bad weapon to have, though.
It's not a bad weapon, but you can't put all your eggs in that one basket. And let's be honest here. Jameis Winston isn't.
The Saints might put it all into Alvin Kamara.
Jameis Winston isn't the most accurate passer.
Did you hear he got LASIK surgery? Because LASIK Jameis might be a game changer. He can actually see where he's throwing. Actually, he will see.
Yeah, I don't know. I have concerns because, Sean Payton's going to get cute. He's going to throw in Taysom Hill and red zone packages. It's going to limit Jameis Winston's upside in the red zone. So I have concerns with Jameis Winston. So I can't get on board with this one. I don't have him ranked as high as you do, but it's nice that they're a clear-cut starter. It's nice for Alvin Kamara, but at the end of the day, I still have concerns. Okay, back to Darrynton Evans.
All right, yes. I talked too long about Darrynton Evans, so please tell the listeners all about Darrynton Evans.
Oh, I love Darrynton Evans. I mean, this kid, I thought he looked fantastic in the preseason. I understand he has injury concerns, and that will always be a concern here with Darrynton Evans. But, I mean, in the preseason, he was getting significant workload, training camp, significant workload. I firmly believe he will be the third down back in this offense when healthy. And I believe that was the role he was going to be slotted for last year prior to that hamstring injury derailing his campaign. But the other reason I really love Darrynton Evans is he is the direct backup with really nobody behind him. They just cut Brian Hill. They have, I think, Joe Mickles is really the only other person
Jeremy
behind
McNichols.
him. Thank you. I don't even know his name. That's how bad he is.
So Donta Foreman isn't there anymore.
So McNichols is it, right? So outside that, we're talking about a running back ahead of him who has logged over 681 carries the last 2 years. That's a lot. I mean, that is a shit ton. Excuse my language, but it is. And Evans is, he's serving as the lead backup to Derrick Henry. So in a tournament play, if Derrick Henry goes down, and I'm not saying you bank on injuries, but when you can get this man in round 15, round 16, with the upside that he possesses, as well as the involvement in the passing game, I think that it's worth a dart throw, especially late in drafts. So I am in on Darrynton Evans, and I just think that, his 96th percentile in his 40-yard dash, his 86th percentile speed, the dude is fast. And I just think that I've seen comps even as similar to Alvin Kamara, and I'm not going that far. But I do think that Darrynton Evans has a lot of upside, especially for his ADP in drafts.
Okay, we've got a question. before we move on to our fifth sleepers. Is Amon-Ra St. Brown a low-key sleeper?
Yes. Yeah,
I
especially after Brashad Perriman being cut. I think this offense is just going to be bad altogether. I think it's going to be funneled through TJ Hawkinson and, DeAndre Swift when he's healthy and these running backs. I think you're going to see a lot of,
Jamal
two running
Williams
back
is
sets.
a capable pass catcher.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of 2 running back sets. I think you're going to see a lot of TJ Hawkinson. And then, let's not forget Tyrell Williams has a 1,000-yard season under his belt and was very efficient when he was on the Raiders. What is it, a year and a half ago now? Because last year he was hurt. So
and the Chargers back with Phillip Rivers too.
Yeah, so he has shown upside. He has been consistent when he has not been injury plagued. So I think St. Brown has a chance to flash, but I think that this offense is going to have limited opportunities and upside with 3 and outs on this field.
And St. Brown has been moved around the formation during preseason, so they've been looking to manufacture some touches for him. He was a good pick, I believe, in the 4th round. So, he was a value there. Some were saying maybe he'll get in the 2nd round, maybe he'll get in the 3rd round. But for him, Amon-Ra St. Brown to fall into the 4th round, I think that's a great value there. Okay, Billy, it's time for our 5th. Actually, no. Before we move on, one other note about the Tennessee Titans: they cut their 4th round wide receiver today.
I saw that.
Fitzpatrick.
Who they traded up for, by the way.
3 picks. They traded 3 picks.
What a waste.
To move up to draft Des Fitzpatrick, who is now on waivers. So Tennessee can't get all of them right. And this was before they traded for Julio Jones. So
it is.
Oh, well.
Who are our 5th sleepers here?
Our 5th sleeper. Your 5th sleeper is Baker Mayfield. I feel like this is the Baker Mayfield love fest, this Fantasy Football Fanalist podcast.
I've never talked about Baker Mayfield on this podcast.
I've never lied to anyone before in my life.
I may have talked about him once or twice. But before I dig into the data here, you've heard us go over a lot of numbers tonight. You've heard us dig deep in analytics. If you like any of the data that we've gone over, make sure to use promo code FFF20. I'll put it on the banner here for all of you to see. So FFF20, Bradley and I are both clicking on it simultaneously, and it's flashing on and off. So FFF20, 20% off all your fantasy data subscriptions. It stacks, folks. Yes, on top of the other discounts on the season. And that counts for sites too. So if you own a site and you want the API data, you can also use that code FFF20 for 20% off. All right, Baker Mayfield. I feel like it's been a Baker year. It's been
a Baker off season. That's what we've been talking about.
It has, but I mean, he's going undrafted in FFPC drafts at times. Undrafted. I mean, put some respect on this man's name. This man had a 5-touchdown game last year. He was very efficient down the stretch. They put a beating on Pittsburgh inside the playoffs. A lot of people will say it was the running back game, but okay. Baker finally has Stefanski for 2 years. First time in his career. I know it does sound like I'm a Cleveland fan. I am not a Cleveland fan. I'm a Niners fan. I didn't even really knew that Cleveland was a football team until last year, honestly, because they've sucked so long. But it was Baker. So stats here. I'm going to look at my sheet because there's a lot of stats. So he finished 2020 throwing for 3,560 yards, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. It's a very good touchdown to INT ratio. 62.8 completion percentage, which was 13th in the NFL. Touchdown rate was 5.3. He finished tied second with Patrick Mahomes in terms of money throws with 39. Completed 46.6% of deep balls on 58 attempts, which was 5th best in the league. He was quarterback 1 in interceptable passes thrown in 2020 at 0.6. Quarterback 9 in red zone completion percentage. Quarterback 5 in true passer rating, only behind the likes of Rodgers, Tannehill, Mahomes, and Watson. That's a pretty good company, Bradley.
He is the number 1 overall pick for a reason, Billy, and it's about time that he got a coach that could use his skill set to its full potential. You have to remember last year He's been
living in the stadium mowing lawns, for crying out loud. He knows this field.
I was very out on Baker Mayfield last year, and I was right to be so. There was concerns about the passing volume. There were concerns about whether or not Baker
Uncle Andy's blocked. by the way. I'm blocking him.
You are not. I'm unblocking him. Ben Roethlisberger. I don't have Roethlisberger ahead of Baker, but I have Roethlisberger way ahead of the consensus rankings.
I have him ahead of him in injuries and losses.
And bad elbows. Okay. But Baker Mayfield, I was out on him last year because of all of those things. And he had a bad touchdown to interception rate. And now in Stefanski's offense with an extra offseason, remember last offseason, they didn't have an offseason. They didn't have a preseason. And it took a while for Baker to get comfortable with a new coach, a new system, understanding the new ways. They remade their offensive line completely. So Baker had to relearn where all of his offensive linemen were supposed to be. His blockers were supposed to be. They brought in Austin Hooper. They brought in Andy Janovich. They drafted a left tackle. They brought in Jack Conklin on the right side of the offense. They redid everything. So they did a hard reset for Baker Mayfield, and it took him half of a season. And they were very run heavy the first half of the season, as you mentioned, Billy, a few times. And as Mike Clay has tweeted out, the Browns became one of the pass heaviest teams in the NFL during the second half of the season. And it wasn't because Nick Chubb was out. It was because, Nick Chubb was in, and they were still one of the pass heaviest. And Chubb was going absolutely berserk during the second half of the season after his injury. So wheels up for Baker Mayfield. I think he's a great sleeper pick. There's no reason he should be undrafted. Absolute stud. And we're all in on the Browns on this podcast.
Do you hear that, Bradley?
All aboard!
Yes, we're all aboard the Baker Mayfield train. Yes, I am. I know it sounds like I am. I'm
a Cleveland
fan. And Bradley's dad warned me. I stayed with Bradley's parents here just a couple of weeks ago, and he told me not to get my heart set on these Cleveland Browns. But you know what? I'm doing it. I'm all in this year on the Browns. I really am. Holy shit! I just said that. I'm all in on the Browns.
Oh, that's awesome. That's phenomenal. All right, Billy, I'll bring it home with my number 5 sleeper. And as many of us knew, we saw this past weekend, J.K. Dobbins went down with an injury. And you're thinking to yourself, Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards is the pick. And, that's not a bad pick. I think Gus Edwards, I have him. It was a top 30 pick. But he just doesn't catch passes. His career high is 9 passes. Career high, 9 receptions.
Hold up. Did you move the slide? I still see Baker.
I haven't.
Okay. I was like, am I lagging out again?
Building up. No, I'm building up. So the Ravens are one of the run heaviest teams in the NFL. And this player has outright won the running back 2 spot behind Gus Edwards. And very well may be splitting more like a 60-40, 65-35 with upside, more receiving upside than Gus Edwards, and that's Tyson Williams, an undrafted player out of BYU. He is very fast. He ran a 4.5 3.40, 79th percentile speed score. As I mentioned, the Ravens, they've got Lamar Jackson, they've got Gus Edwards, and their offensive line is designed to support good running. His player profiler comp, Tyson Williams, Damian Harris. And usually when I go through the player profiler comps, I'm like suspicious because, as I'm clicking through, I'm like, who is this guy like? Who's this guy like? So I started going through it, and Damian Harris, Damian Williams, Joe Mixon. Those are the 3 close comps to Tyson Williams. I know. So when you're going for an absolute late dart throw for running back, you want volume, because that's the stickiest stat in getting running back fantasy production is volume. You know that Baltimore is going to give the rock to multiple runners, and not just Lamar Jackson, not just Gus Edwards. Tyson Williams won this job for a reason. His career 233, 12, 20, and 8 among his college career. He won this job. He's on the roster. He beat out Justice Hill, who was, a pick 2 years ago. So if you're taking a dart throw on a running back in this Baltimore offense behind Gus Edwards, it needs to be Tyson Williams.
So people keep saying that the running back one for the Baltimore Ravens got hurt, but I still see Lamar Jackson on the field, Bradley. That was a joke, Bradley. That was a joke. That was a bad joke. Okay, never mind.
Here's the thing is that we were already thinking that J.K. Dobbins was only going to split like 60-40 with Gus Edwards. So if we split it, like Gus is one of the best pure rushers in the NFL, and he doesn't get any love for it because he's behind Lamar Jackson. He's behind J.K. Dobbins. He was behind Mark Ingram a couple years ago.
So I like the pick here, and don't get me wrong. And in the last few days, I've done a couple drafts, Bradley, if you wouldn't believe that or not. But I have
wait, you've been drafting this week?
Yeah, so I did four at a time last night on Underdog. I had the big dog going, and I had 3 of the best ball manias, and 5's my limit. I've learned once I hit 6, I started timing out, like multiple simultaneously on multiple screens, all split up. If you got, because I can do 4 drafts here, and I can do like half screen and half screen, half screen.
Billy's got his phone. He's got his other phone. He's got a tablet. Do you have it on the iPad yet?
I have actually pulled up. So when I had 6 going, I had the iPad pulled up in front of me with two drafts on each monitor pulled up side by side. So 4 drafts going on the 2 monitors, and then the iPad had 1 draft going on.
I'm crying. That's so beautiful.
That was the max. But where I was going with this story was it takes news for people. It takes time for news to catch up. Mm-hmm. And Tyson Williams was going in round 20 on these big dog on these big dog drafts on Underdog for the first couple days after the Dobbins news. And I know it's only been a few days, but like if you do like 4 or 5 drafts a day, it seems like it's longer. But it's if you're able to start adding him, and now he's starting to sneak up drafts. But my only concern with him is when he starts moving up these ranks, and we're going to start seeing him go in where around like 13, 14, and 15. That's where I start getting priced out because, first day, second day, you're able to get him in around 19, 20, 18, 19, 20. And my concern is that they bring in a veteran, somebody like David Johnson, that has been rumored to be on the trade block or rumored to be on the cutting block. And yes, he made it through the first round.
Made it through this round at least. So,
which is nice. But at what point do the Ravens, who are, let's face it, have Super Bowl aspirations?
They do.
And have the team to get there, go out and sign a veteran that would move Tyson Williams immediately down the depth chart. That's my only concern. But in the meantime, I love the pick. He's been, my go-to in the 16th, 17th, 18th round best balls. And
his Underdog ADP right now is 212.
Yeah, and it was even further the last couple of days. It's been slowly climbing as people start to recognize that he's there, because those drafts are 30 seconds. People miss them. They're just drafting purely based off ADP. And it's the smart people who are looking in advance and looking down and finding people who are buried on these depth charts. So I like it. I really do like him. And I think he has a good skill set. And I think he's definitely ahead of Justice Hill in this offense.
All right.
So Billy, let's go ahead and let's pull up for everyone here so they can see.
Yeah, let's do it.
Here is our final recap. So my number 1 sleeper, Gabriel Davis. My number 2, Terrace Marshall. He's a stud. He should be number 1, honestly. But number 3, Bryan Edwards. Number 4, Darrynton Evans. Number 5, Baker Mayfield. Bradley?
Yep, my number 1 sleeper, Jakobi Meyers. Number 2, Zach Ertz. My 3rd sleeper, Rondale Moore. My 4th sleeper, Tyson Williams. And my 5th, Jameis Winston, quarterback for New Orleans. Billy, if you were to pick, so pull it up again. If you were to pick one of the sleepers, which one do you think is going to hit the hardest this year of your sleepers?
Well, I want to say Baker because I have so many bets on him, but I think Terrace Marshall has a chance to outperform ADP, outperform expectations, and honestly, be the number 2 option in this receiving game for this offense. He just has that skill set. This defense is not that good. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot. I think that this offense is going to be better than people think. I think Terrace Marshall has a chance to be a legitimate, Justin Jefferson of 2021. Baker, of course, could take the step forward, and I have all those bets on him, but I'm going to say Terrace Marshall for all my sleepers.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jakobi Meyers. I think that he'll command a target share. I think that the touchdowns will positively regress. You can only get better than 0, right?
Yes.
Like either it matches at 0 receiving touchdowns or it's more. And I am banking on target share being there in a more pass heavy offense. And will Mac Jones make mistakes? Sure. But I think that the reason why Bill Belichick chose to start Mac Jones over Cam Newton has to do with his ability to get the ball down the field to the players that need to have the ball. And I think that Mac Jones could do that better than Cam Newton. And that's why I'm banking on Jakobi Meyers, who has a good catch percentage. He's a player that can get down the field, and I think the touchdowns will go up for him this year.
All right, now let's do a fun one. I pick one from your side. You pick one from my side. I'm going to say Rondale Moore on your side. I just think that this offense is electric. I think that they're in need of that solid wide receiver 2 on their team. Christian Kirk has not been the answer. AJ Green is at the tail end of his career. I think Rondale Moore, the Ant-Man, is that man.
You know, before today, I would have said Baker Mayfield. But I think today there was movement enough in my mind and in my projections for Bryan Edwards.
Yeah, he's a stud. He really is.
With Smokey John Brown being cut today, I think that significantly shifts. I had John Brown projected for about a 12% target share that now I had to distribute among like the rest of the wide receivers and Darren Waller, and I threw maybe a percent toward Kenyon Drake. But I think Bryan Edwards now has the opportunity to showcase that talent that wasn't really showcased last year due to the injuries and inconsistent play, and just really doubling down on Darren Waller in that offense. So I think I like the Bryan Edwards pick today.
Buy him. I'm buying it. All right, everybody. Well, we hope you enjoyed tonight's sleeper show. I mean, Bradley and I are giving you our sleeper picks. I mean, I have literally been drafting these folks since February, late in drafts. I mean, this is straight cash that we're giving you, money advice to help your pocket. I put my money where my mouth is in FFPC. I've been drafting these folks all off season. Bradley has witnessed it. Bradley has been drafting these guys all off season and all year long as well. These are players that we truly do love, players that we truly buy ourselves. And we are trying to help you guys find the sleeper picks in your drafts to help win your league. So we hope you enjoyed the show. This Friday, we're going to come back Friday, 6 o'clock Pacific time, 9 o'clock Eastern as normal. And we're going to be discussing. What are we discussing again, Bradley?
I don't even remember. We've got a great show planned though.
it was our hot takes for 2021.
What hot and spicy thing are you going to eat before the podcast?
Ooh, maybe like a jalapeno beer. Let's do it.
Ooh. All right.
So our hot takes.
Maybe I'll get some hot stuffed potato chips. How about that?
Yeah, our hot takes 2021, our big projections. See what we can do. Make some waves with some big splashes here on our Friday show. See you all back here Friday night. Thanks for tuning in.